Spain once stood at the very center of the world. Its kings ruled over vast lands, stretching from Europe to the Americas, from the Philippines to parts of Africa. Gold and silver poured in from the New World, and Spain's name carried fear and respect across the globe. For a time, the Spanish royal family seemed untouchable, destined to rule forever. But hidden behind the palaces and power was a problem that no army or treasure could fix. The family tree of the Spanish royals, especially the Hapsburg dynasty, carried within it the seeds of its own destruction. In their attempt to keep power pure and contained within the family, the rulers of Spain tied themselves in knots. Their marriages, meant to protect their throne, slowly destroyed it. This is the story of how a family tree, carefully built for power, collapsed into weakness, and how it dragged down an empire with it. To understand the fall, we must first look at the rise. In the 16th century, the Spanish monarchy reached the peak of its glory under the Habsburg dynasty. The Habsburgs were not just rulers of Spain. They were rulers of Europe. Charles V, born in 1500, was perhaps the most powerful monarch of his time. Through inheritance and marriage, he controlled Spain, Austria, parts of Italy, the Netherlands, and vast territories in the Americas. His empire was so large that it was said the sun never set on his domains. Charles's son, Philip II, carried this legacy forward. Under Philip, Spain enjoyed immense wealth from the Americas. The Spanish Armada sailed across the seas, and Catholicism spread under royal support. Spain was feared, respected, and envied. But behind this golden picture was a dangerous habit. The Habsburgs married within their own family. Cousins married cousins, uncles married nieces, and bloodlines grew tangled. This practice was not unique to Spain. Many royal families did it to preserve power. But in Spain, it reached extremes that would eventually cost them dearly. The very system that gave Spain its empire also planted the roots of its decline. Royal marriages were never about love. They were about politics, alliances, and power. For the Habsburgs of Spain, the guiding rule was clear: keep power in the family. Instead of marrying foreign nobility far away, they often married close relatives. At first glance, this made sense. By marrying within the family, the Habsburgs could keep their wealth and land from scattering into the hands of rivals. Every cousin or niece could be trusted more than a distant outsider. But while it protected power in the short term, it weakened the family in the long term. The Spanish royal family tree became more like a circle than a tree. The same family names repeated generation after generation. For example, Philip II married his own niece, Anna of Austria. Their son became Philip III, who then married his cousin. And the pattern continued. Each of these marriages tightened the knot. Physically, the family began to show signs of genetic strain. Mentally, some members struggled with illnesses. The Habsburgs believed they were strengthening their dynasty, but in reality, they were slowly poisoning it. The royal family had built a web too tight, a trap of their own making. And soon, this trap would claim its most tragic victim. In simple terms, inbreeding means marrying within the same family for many generations. Science tells us that inbreeding increases the chances of passing down harmful genetic problems. When parents are close relatives, they often carry the same hidden weaknesses in their DNA. If both parents pass down these weaknesses, the child is more likely to suffer from illness. The Spanish Habsburgs are one of the clearest historical examples of this problem. Over 2 centuries of inbreeding led to what is now known as the Hapsburg curse. The most famous physical sign was the Hapsburg jaw. Members of the family often had a long, protruding jaw, drooping lower lips, and difficulty speaking or chewing. But the problems went deeper than appearances. Many Hapsburg children were born weak, sickly, or died young. Some kings were mentally unstable. Fertility problems became common, and the royal line struggled to produce healthy heirs. The more they tried to keep bloodlines pure, the more fragile the family became. Doctors at the time could not explain why the kings and queens were so often ill. Many people believed it was a curse, a punishment from God, or even witchcraft. But today, historians and scientists see it clearly as the effect of centuries of close family marriages. This genetic trap reached its peak with one king, Charles II of Spain. His life was a portrait of everything that went wrong with the Hapsburg family tree. Charles II, known as El Hechizado, or the Bewitched, was born in 1661. From the very beginning, his life was marked by illness and weakness. He was the son of Philip IV and Mariana of Austria, who were uncle and niece. This close relation concentrated generations of inbreeding into their child. Charles was physically frail. He could barely walk until he was 8 years old. His jaw was so deformed that he struggled to chew food. He suffered from epilepsy and frequent illnesses. Mentally, he was often described as slow and easily influenced. Despite these struggles, Charles became king at the age of 4 when his father died. Spain was still a vast empire, but under Charles, its power crumbled. He was unable to lead armies or produce strong leadership. Instead, foreign powers and his mother's advisors often controlled the court. The most tragic problem was that Charles had no children. He married twice, but both marriages were childless. His body simply could not produce an heir. For a dynasty built entirely on bloodlines, this was a disaster. As Charles grew older, Spain fell into deeper decline. The empire lost territories, its economy weakened, and corruption spread. The people whispered that Charles was bewitched, cursed by dark forces. But in truth, his suffering was the result of his family's own choices. When Charles II died in 1700, he was only 38 years old. His death marked the end of the Spanish Habsburg line. There was no son, no heir to take the throne. The family tree that had once given Spain its power had finally collapsed under its own weight. The death of Charles II without an heir created a crisis across Europe. Who would inherit the Spanish throne and its vast empire? Different royal families across Europe claimed the right because they were related by marriage to the Hapsburgs. This dispute exploded into the War of Spanish Succession, one of the largest wars of the 18th century. For more than a decade, countries like France, Austria, and Britain fought to decide who would rule Spain. In the end, the Spanish crown passed to a new dynasty, the Bourbons from France. They were related to the Hapsburgs, but came from outside Spain. This ended nearly 2 centuries of Habsburg rule in Spain. The Spanish Habsburgs had destroyed themselves. Their obsession with blood purity, their tangled marriages, and their failure to produce heirs had opened the door for outsiders. Spain, once the richest and most feared empire, entered a long period of decline. The family tree that was supposed to protect the throne had instead shattered it. The story of the Spanish Habsburgs carries lessons that go beyond history books. It shows us how human ambition can sometimes turn against itself. The Habsburgs believed they were protecting their dynasty by keeping bloodlines pure. Instead, they weakened it so badly that it collapsed. Power is fragile when it depends only on family ties. A kingdom cannot survive if its leaders are too weak to rule. Spain's glory in the 16th century was built on exploration, trade, and armies, but it was undone by the very people at the top. Today, genetic science helps us understand what the Habsburgs could not. We know that diversity in families makes them stronger, while too much closeness brings risk. Their story reminds us that leadership, like life itself, cannot survive without balance. The Spanish royal family became a warning written in history. The Spanish Habsburgs began as one of the most powerful dynasties the world had ever seen. Their empire stretched across oceans, their kings sat at the center of European politics, and their name inspired fear and respect. But their greatest enemy was not on the battlefield. It was in their own family tree. Through generations of inbreeding, the Habsburgs created weak heirs, sickly kings, and eventually a ruler too fragile to continue the line. When Charles II died without an heir, Spain's golden age was over. The family tree that once promised eternal power became the very reason for collapse. And so, the Spanish royals were destroyed not by their rivals, but by their own choices. History still remembers their power, but it also remembers their downfall, a dynasty that tried to keep everything within the family, only to lose it all.